Hey everyone, my name is Troy Murphy, and to my right is my partner in crime in this thing called Lead Wisco, Ryan Kibbe. Ryan,
We'll try not too many criminal actions.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. We're both pastors, so if we're a criminal, we're in trouble. We're really in trouble. Well, our guest is somebody I've known for some time now, and just, there's people you meet that have an energy that inspire you to, I think, be a better leader, and even with how that faith informs them, it inspires you in faith. And I'm going to introduce him, but it's Caleb Hayes, and let me just tell you a little about this guy. It's interesting, his story. His father buys him a book when he's really young, still in high school, and it's how we made $1 million recycling great old houses. And so he ends up buying his first house, albeit though he had to go to 7 banks to try to get the final yes from the lender. But Caleb today now has a company that's the umbrella company called it's Hayes Enterprises, Caleb Hayes Enterprises, which is crazy. He's involved with Keller Williams Brokerages, which is huge, real estate investing, private equity, companies under the CHE, which is Caleb Hayes, again, Enterprises, Umbrella, Keller Williams Green Bay, Fox Cities. Again, this list goes crazy on. Transfer Title, Hayes University, Boardwalk Properties, Marvin Gardens, Park Place Holdings. Sounds like Monopoly. We're going to have to find out about that for sure. 400 real estates in what he does, 50 homes he flips a year, 35 rental units, owns, tons of retail space valued over $12 million. So he's legit in the business, right? There has to be something about this guy that we have to learn here about leadership and what's driven him.
Absolutely.
So everybody, Lead Wisco, will you welcome Caleb Hayes? I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you the audience. Here's this.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
You wanted that, yeah.
I expect that.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about the beginning, because I don't know about you, but I want to know a little bit more about, okay, you find a book that someone brings home. Somehow in your early stage, you get formed this strong idea about, I want to do real estate. Talk about that.
Yeah. So my dad gave me the book. I was 12 years old. And it was really it was my first experience where I actually found my spiritual gift, right? It was my first exposure to my spiritual gift, which I believe everybody has, where God just plants something on your heart, and then, something fuels that.
So wait, did you feel that at that age? Like, this is a spiritual gift God's given me?
No, reflecting back, I felt it now, but I couldn't explain it, because I read the book, and then it just was like a flame, turned into a fire.
I want to do this.
Yeah, I want to do this. And so then I just started reading, which is really strange for a 12-year-old to want to read a bunch of real estate books, but I'm not kidding. I probably have like every real estate investing book that's out there. And it was just a passion of mine. So I started chasing after it and tried to buy my first property when I was a sophomore in high school. And
so sophomore in high school, he buys a house.
Can I just interrupt? That's not normal, man. That's wild.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I thank you.
So wait, you had to go to 7 banks though. Can you just unpack that? Because I think as a sophomore, if I'm a sophomore in high school, I'd be freaking out that I'm buying a house. Now I'm thinking as a sophomore, I'm going to a bank and talking to loan officers.
Yeah. So actually what happened was, when I was a sophomore, I wanted to buy my first property. I found it. I found it. It was like my first at bat, so to speak. Right. So I get up, tell my parents I want to buy a house. I was a sophomore, and my dad's like, "You're in every sport that you can be in," and he's like, "You can do this for the rest of your life. Like, nobody's gonna hold you back." He's like, "But for right now, just finish sports, finish high school." So they kind of in their wisdom, brought me down to earth, so to speak. And it was absolutely the right call. So they said, "You can do that after you graduate." And they're like, "Why can't you be normal and want a tattoo or something?"
Yeah. Hey, can you not start your property mega business now?
These are parental problems that we all face, right?
Yeah. I know that like kids now they're really struggling with this. Can I start my $1 million business now, Dad?
Yeah, come on. Yeah.
So they said, wait till you're 18, wait till you graduate. You can do anything you want, basically, at that point. So it was 2 weeks after graduating that I had actually gotten the property under contract before I graduated, but knowing that it took time to close.
You did.
2 weeks after graduating, I was able to close.
Yeah.
On
and let me just repeat, that's not normal.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's probably what makes it so cool to talk to you, because stories of getting to where people are and they're, quote unquote, successful financially and in leadership. Usually there's a lot of bumps and bruises, and I'm sure you've had those. We'll talk about those in a minute, but to start as early as you did is quite amazing. And to find the thing you loved the most and what you love doing and you're still doing is pretty amazing.
Yeah, thank you. And didn't realize, but God was using that as the fire to forge me into leadership. Right, I fought being a leader for a very long time, but naturally, when you have such a passion for anything, people tend to follow.
So tell us now. Take us. So you've bought a house. I think you flipped that house, right?
Yeah. So it was a commercial property. Bought it when I was 18. I was there every night, working on it. I put all the sweat equity into it. I had to convince, I went to 7 banks. The 8th one was like, finally, yes, we'll do this. The 8th one's like, we'll take a risk that you're going to do all the work, put work into it, kept it as a rental. And then the equity that I created in that first property is what I leveraged to buy the second property, which was a residential home. So it was a commercial building, then a residential home.
Wow.
And that residential home, I house hacked it, which is a really popular term now in the real estate investing world, but it was just a way to pay for college then. So house hack, bought it, and then rented out to roommates, and that helped pay for school. So I was able to graduate from college debt free.
So I just have this question about so 6 banks turn you down. Have you ever used them?
Never again. Never again.
I'm never using you. Look where I am now.
No, actually, the 6 banks, they should not have loaned me. The 7th.
So that was wise.
Yeah, they should not have loaned me. I was an 18-year-old kid. It was 2005. No job.
Right.
Why did they?
The one bank had worked with my dad prior.
You had some favor.
Kind of, but they also saw I showed up with a binder, you know what I mean? And it was like hole punch. There was I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's what I'm going to do. And
right.
And I'll come in and I'll give you an update, whatever it was. So it was my first exposure to selling, but I didn't even really realize that I was selling myself. It was just hey, I'm going to do this. Are you going to help me or not? Because I got to go to the 9th bank right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
but that's perseverance too. That's a huge thing.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Absolutely.
So you then go to college.
Yeah, went to college, got a degree in construction management. I graduated early because I was paying for it myself.
Where did you go to college?
Northern Michigan University.
Okay.
And 4-year degree, I graduated in 3.5 years because I was paying for it. So I crammed in, whatever they say you shouldn't do now, 24 credits or 26 credits a semester or whatever it was, so that I could get done early. I flipped 2 houses while I was in college on top of those other 2 that I bought.
Can I just add that that's not normal?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I also worked part-time. So I graduated in 2008, got a degree in construction management, and everybody, and I don't know if you guys remember, but in 2008, the world was collapsing in terms of real estate and commercial and construction.
Right. Yeah.
They had 100% placement in 2007. 2008, only 2 of us got jobs out of 75 kids. And they're like, we don't even want to hire you, but the only reason we're hiring is you because you flipped 2 houses, you worked part-time, and you graduated early. So they're like, you're probably a hard worker. So I got a job, and I worked in Chicago for about a little over a year.
Wow. And then you came back north and started his business. And, Caleb is only now 23 years old. And
34.
Okay, sorry, yeah. That's a crazy story, isn't it?
It is.
Again, so there's so much success on this rap sheet about you. It's ridiculous. I think I want to dive in kind of into some deeper stuff and talk about, Caleb, what are some leadership core principles for you that are really important to your business? Because you've obviously picked those up somewhere, and I'd love to hear where you got those from. I'm about a year, I have a granddaughter, so I'm a grandfather, which is weird. And now I'm going to be, my daughter just said they're now having a boy. So now I'm going to be, it's my second, it'll be a grandson and a granddaughter, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden this weight of, I hear people talk about my grandfather taught me or my father taught me. And there's this kind of, I think, new sense of, wow, I want to impart some of that, what I think I've learned to them. So what did you pick up? You picked up some stuff. Talk about that.
Yeah. So one of the crucial moments in my life growing up was when my dad actually taught this is the only time I remember my dad teaching Sunday school for me when I was growing up. And it was a a class on, okay, here's all the characteristics you can have. They laid out all the characteristics on the table, and they said, you have to pick one. My dad's like, you have to pick one. And, there was, intelligent, there was hard worker, there was wisdom,
good
looking, right? All the great things, right? And everybody picked theirs. Everybody in the class picked theirs.
Wait, there's probably not normal on there.
Not normal is probably
It's just not normal. It just isn't.
Right. And so we had the class, and the class was about wisdom. And it was one of those things that I learned at a very young age. Like, God put my dad in that classroom for a reason. I received the information really well, and it stuck with me to this day that wisdom is something that you should pursue daily. And so it's something I pray for every day is wisdom. And I think that from that wisdom, God says he gives it in abundance. So you just got to request it, right? And he'll give that in abundance. So I do that daily, and that was something that kind of forged my leadership style in the early days. Wisdom to know when you're not the smartest person, and wisdom to know when you should really pursue something that you're passionate about.
I think I just discovered my problem in my life. I'm 57. I've not been asking for that. I think I think I could have eliminated a lot of problems in my life if I could have said.
Makes a lot of sense now that you say that. No.
Awesome.
Wow. So you got that really early.
I got that early. Yeah. And, that's been crucial. That's been crucial, is constantly asking for that, being humbly asking for it. And then the strength to act on it. It's one thing to know. It's a whole other thing to actually implement.
You have a real good foundation so from the early onset, your dad pours into you. I think there's an inheritance there that, I think speaks to some of us. We didn't have dads or, moms or whatever, but that you took that seed and you ran with it. I think wherever it comes from, a dad or a mentor,
100%, yep.
That's, you stewarded what was deposited.
Yeah. And so my core values today are God, family, real estate, and serving others. Okay. And you asked like where that came from. That came from Keller Williams. So when I first bought a Keller Williams franchise, I was 24. Their core values are God, family,
Wait a second. Say it. It's not normal. He's
That's
24 years
It
old.
really isn't.
That's crazy.
I know this is going to sound like a broken record,
I know it.
but you're not normal. Hey.
They taught me it was God, family, business. And I was like, well, hold on a minute. Like a very large franchise can have the same values that I know that I have. Like they just kind of like empowered me to my identity. So my core values today are God, family, real estate, which is my business, and then serving others. I believe it's in that order. I believe my day is structured in that order, and start my day off in my faith, spend time with my family. I boxed myself in because in my business and being a semi-workaholic, you could easily have your business run your life. So I boxed myself in from 8 to 3:30 every day. I bust it in the professional sense. And then when all those are taken care of, you have this amazing opportunity to serve other people. And you
just said something interesting there. What would be fun to talk about.
It's really good.
Business run your life. That probably, it's something in our culture that actually you kind of get applauded for that.
Workaholism.
Because you can vest yourself so much in that you are financially productive, right? Mm-hmm. And you could do that in ministry too and be very successful. The problem is, as a mentor just told me, it's like a rotting tree in the inside. It looks great on the outside, but it's dying on the inside.
Can we talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, let's talk about
that. Because grew up in the church. Okay, I'm going to give you my testimony here for a minute. Grew up in the church, became very, very successful in terms of it was not normal. I achieved financial success at a high level. I had businesses that performed really, really well. Like to the outside world, I had a beautiful family. I had a young family at the time. But on the inside, my spiritual life was dead. I was rotting on the inside. So that whole experience, right, what had happened was when I was a kid and I was 4 years old, we were in a field. We had just bought property. It was a farm, and we were there hooking up our washer and dryer. And I said, "Dad, there's deer out there." It was like one of my first experiences with deer. I was very, very young, but I remember it like it was yesterday. And my dad, in his wisdom, was like, "I'm like, I want to go get them." He's like, "Go get them. Like, chase after it." He's like, "You got a dream? Go chase after it, right?" And I chased after those deer. When you're 4 years old and you get out in a 12-acre field and you finally get really close to the deer, you turn around and you are completely lost. The grass is so high, you have no perception. I had no idea where my dad was. right? And it was one of those like terrifying moments as a child, but like everybody let it happen to me because it taught me a very valuable lesson. I turned around, I had no perspective. I didn't know where my dad was. The deer took off and I'm just lost in this field. So I immediately started crying, and my dad's kind of laughing, but he's traveling towards me, and he was calling out for me, saying, "Caleb, I'm right here. Just follow my voice. I'm right here. Just follow my voice." And because I was crying, I couldn't hear him. But once I had realized that I was completely alone, and I got dead silent, and then boom, I heard my dad, right?
Yeah.
And then I just took off and I ran towards
From
him.
a pastor that will preach.
That will preach.
That will preach.
Okay.
Yeah. Give this man a microphone.
So in that moment, and then as soon as I heard my dad's voice, boom, I took off, right? And then he grabbed me, embraced me, and it was just an experience. It probably meant nothing to him, but it meant everything to me because
absolutely
25 years later, Christ did the same thing with me.
Yeah.
I was chasing things. I got a lot of ambition. Like if I let that run wild in my life, I will take over.
You're not alone.
I will.
There's a lot of people
Right.
that are there.
We forgive you, Ryan.
I'm working on it. He works me over.
And so I chased things of this world. They weren't dear,
Yeah.
but it was things like success. It was money. It was
Right.
a successful business. It was a family. I put all those things out there and I just chased after them. But what had happened was I got away from the thing that's stable in our lives, the thing that will always be there for. That's our Heavenly Father, right? And I got so far out there, and the rest of the world was like, "Oh my gosh, Caleb, come talk to us. We want to learn from you." And on the inside, I mean, I was depressed. I had caught everything. I caught the deer this time. I caught financial success. I caught business. I caught these things. And the rest of the world was like, "Oh my gosh, like you're so successful."
Right.
And then, and you're sitting there going, "Why am I not happy? What's missing?" And you're like, "Oh, you drifted so far from your father, right? You drifted so far from your father that I was lost."
Yeah.
And it took a moment. It took a very interesting time in my life where I got dead quiet, had to just sit in it. And what was really interesting was the second in my heart I completely accepted what happened on the cross, boom, God was there. I started hearing his voice again. He showed up, and my life has been completely changed ever since then. And to this day, God still uses what the devil used to try to hurt me. He uses as a story that I tell people now. It's like, you can chase those things if you want. Financial security. I hate that. I hate those words. I don't say that lightly. I don't like those words because the only security we have is in the cross, right? And so you can chase those things, but I got super far, and immediately I opened my heart and I turned around. God was there, filled my heart, and then
So I want you to know,
That's amazing.
wow, that's amazing that you picked up on that. But I also say that story went way different than I thought it was going to go. I was waiting for your dad to shoot the deer because we're in Wisconsin. I seriously
there was plenty of that too,
I was waiting for the dad was going to be like, "I got this, son," bam, and then we're going to have this story of a deer hunt.
Right.
How crazy though that would anchor in your soul and your heart that way, and then later on to come back. So I think so. Let's talk about leadership and not disconnect it from faith, but obviously there's a strong faith foundation for you, but leadership, you can't just be a person of faith and doing what you're doing. There are leadership principles that are surfacing, and so you have this order of God, family,
real estate,
then serving others. So somehow though you've done this, and you have to be a good leader. That's what I'm trying to get at, Ryan. Like what you're a leader somehow, and something surfaced at the top. What's made Caleb, what's the secret ability that you have, you think, to leadership? Because God created you unique. What is it? Because we're seeing it all over this rap sheet of all the things you've done. It's not just God's blessing. There's something he's blessed you with that you do well. What is it?
Well, when I figure that out, I'll let you know. But I'll give you some things.
Why don't you just guess?
Okay, I'll guess. Some things. I fought being a leader. I still do to this day. I fight it because there's times where it's like you don't want the responsibility, and being transparent, I think, is very crucial to being a leader, being a God leader. Having humility, right, I think is like one of the greatest things that you can have. Constantly be working on yourself, being a constant learner, being curious, just be curious, and having grace. Like that was something when early on in my career, I thought I thought leaders were born. I didn't, and now if I look back, I think leaders are made. Okay, like the way, because even though I had a bunch of leadership opportunities growing up and I always took them, I kind of fought always being a leader. And I give myself grace when I know I'm not being a very good leader, because if you think about it, I mean, how long did Moses take to step up, right? Like like God used David, right. To become one of the greatest leaders and things like that. So it's like I give myself grace going, okay, if I am not doing something very well on my leadership side, let's work on it, let's learn, and then let's move forward. So I'm always the biggest project in the room. You know, I think that helps my leadership. Like I believe that I need the most amount of work always, and especially in a growing business. If you're going to grow anything, you need to constantly be changing.
So it sounds like you're a learner.
Yeah, which is huge.
And humble in that. So you don't like learn it and go on the big expert. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, you're pushing away for leader, which is probably speaks to a little bit of humility of, I don't want to be seen as the top dog in the room. But honestly, Caleb, you walk in the room and because of what you've done, however much God and how he's gifted you to do it, you are kind of the big presence in the room for business.
I have a question. So you talked about some of the trappings of success. Sometimes, to speak Bible terms, pruning, which is, taking the things off that aren't so good so you can grow more fruit. My question is, like, was there a moment when you had all the trappings of the success, but you were dying on the inside? Was there a defining moment where you saw what you did with a different responsibility? So, for instance, instead of they're serving me, I'm serving them, because you put that in your core values as one of your top about serving others. Was there a shift in your leadership about you serving them?
Yeah, no, I've always, and this was probably from my parents too, but I've always wanted to serve other people. I get great joy from helping others. Like it's just been something that I've had.
You didn't struggle with that that aspect.
Right,
okay.
Right. What I struggled with was when I would remove God out as the center of my life and I'd put other worldly things in it.
Got it.
That was when I struggled. And that was when the shift really, really happened.
I think some leaders do struggle with, well, you exist to serve me.
100%.
As opposed to, but you didn't struggle with that one.
That was one that was one. You want a glass of water? It would be an honor to go get you a glass of water. Right?
Okay.
Go get water. Right. It would be.
That's
it's just
cool.
an honor to like. That's just always been a part of it. Being on stage was always a hard part for me as a leader. Like you're always on stage. That's hard. Just walking by someone, you could have a very negative impact on someone. And even though your heart doesn't, you don't want that. Right. Just because you might have been focused on something else and you just walk past somebody else being a leader, that could totally demotivate that person.
Yeah, and you're in the fishbowl. I mean, that's what we used to talk about it. You're just the way our culture works. People are watching you. Yeah. Wow, this is going really good, and it feels like more questions are percolating.
Yeah, I've got one.
Yeah.
Pushing past pain. You hear in leadership think tanks, failing forward. There's things we experiment even with our church. We're like, you know what? You have permission to fail 3 times at this thing. Go for it. Like in essence, we encourage people to try and fail. How does that play into your leadership?
That every day, that's spot on. We celebrate failure, right? We celebrate, hey, you took a risk.
That's not normal.
Yeah, right. We celebrate risk. When you get out there and you get after it, that's that's not only good for you as a human, that's good for the business. That's test, fail, repeat. Get back into it, try it again, and one of the times it clicks. That's a big misconception, I think, with leaders or people that, hey, you see that person over there, they're super successful. They're an overnight success. It's like, that didn't happen overnight. They failed like 70 times to get to where they are. But we usually don't put a magnifying glass on those pieces, right? You usually don't have those conversations with those people all the way through that journey. You just go, oh, here's where they are today, and let's learn from them today.
Well, and I think you guys would agree, there are some people that just get handed and they haven't had kind of that elbow grease that you put in. And so, it probably brings value back to leadership development, having a strong need for having to put the effort in and work through the journey. That gets me to really probably another part of the question I have is, I want to know your biggest failure. What do you feel like has been that moment where you thought, I really messed that up, and lesson you learned out of that? And it's not really trying to expose you, but I think you talked about vulnerability. I'm a strong believer in that.
That's big.
100%.
And I think part of that is us owning, which our culture doesn't do as leaders or in the faith leadership realm.
I think that's changing, though.
Let's own our mistakes.
Yeah, let's do that.
And what did we learn from it? And so I always think there's gold in the valleys and dark places in our life. So leadership lesson, failure that you learned.
I could take back to one of the biggest ones. My organization started shifting towards a culture that was almost fear-based. And you're in the culture, you're working it, and when you're the leader there, I mean, everything's your responsibility, right? When things are going well, it's their success. When things are not going well, it's your problem.
So were you a part of creating that fear?
I wasn't part of. Yes, I contributed to it because it kept going on. I didn't realize that the culture of our organization started shifting away from.
You could feel the drift.
I couldn't feel the drift. My friend had to grab me and pull me out.
Pull you out.
Yeah, yeah. That's when you got great. It was a staff member, a great leader in our organization, said, "Come here."
Which probably took courage.
Took a lot of courage on that
to lead
part.
up.
100%. And I celebrate her to this day for it, because when that's when somebody really cares about you.
Yeah.
There's a car coming. Let me pull you out of it, right? Yeah. But as a leader, you got to create the environment at which people feel comfortable saying, hey, you got a blind spot here, right? And those things started going away, but somebody still stepped out in faith and stepped out in courage and tried to pull me out of it. And what's happening was the culture of the office was shifting away from, it was becoming more fear-based. We weren't celebrating failures. People started keeping their opinions to themselves, these different things. And I allowed it to happen. It happened under my watch. It's my responsibility. So it's my responsibility to fix it and clean it up and continue to work on it. So that was probably the biggest, my biggest. I mean, I'm not kidding. My leadership, I fail probably every single month, if not every single week, on something. And that's why, so thinking of like specifics, it's like, there's probably 100.
But you created a culture where everybody takes ownership.
Yes.
Like, I'm going to take ownership. I'm going to own this and make positive shifts.
Yep.
And I'm going to ask you to take ownership in your spheres of influence. And so there's an ownership mentality.
100%.
That's what you changed.
100%. Get everybody on board with it. And you got to throw yourself down. Like, here's what I did. I'm sorry. We don't say that enough leaders don't say that enough.
Right.
I messed up. I'm sorry. Here's what we're doing to fix it. Are you coming with me? And then you start working on that.
I'm just so glad that he didn't say his leadership mistake was actually showing up to our podcast.
Yeah, I know.
I was just so glad that didn't even get into the conversation.
It hasn't aired yet.
Yes.
So.
Yeah,
that's so good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think leadership lessons through failures we don't talk about enough. And I mean, you've just mentioned one. I'm sure there's, as you're saying, you said failure every day. And if you have a culture that people are willing to try things and fail, that's a gift, but it's not common. So I'd love to hear, if, again, when I'm calling it the rap sheet, is all the amazing things and the things you're responsible for. And Caleb, in our relationship, we're doing stuff together, which is great. But when is enough? Like, I don't like to say, like, Ryan, I never like to say, like, look ahead 5 years. What are you going to be? I have no idea. I guess, though, to say what's in your heart for what you hope for. What do you see? There's got to be a vision in your heart that maybe you're working towards, maybe you're hoping to see happen.
Yeah. So I have this saying written on my wall. I'm a steward of everything. I'm an owner of nothing. And I take that very seriously. And what I mean by that is my relationship with my wife, I take very good care of that. That could be at any moment that something could happen there. Like I work on that relationship. Like I cherish it, right? Same with my relationship with my kids. Same with our staff members, people in our world. So I look at anything that's in your life that's a blessing. It's your job to take care of it and make it better than when you had it in the first place. So yeah, we've got some great stuff in our organization. We've got a lot of assets that we own and different things like that. But it's our responsibility to take care of that and then multiply it. That's my opinion. When you're entrusted with something, you grow it. You make it better. You use it as your platform. I believe that's like when you start doing those things, people then look at you and then you should point them to the cross, right? So when is enough? I don't know that answer. I do know that we're going to take care of what we have. When our organization stops taking care of what we have, everybody stops, growth stops, and we take care of it. So like we've had businesses that we've bought that started rocking. They started to go backwards. All hands on deck. We're not growing anymore. Go take care of what we have. Then we grow. So I don't know where it'll go. I do know that the reason my values are God, family, business, and then serving others is that when all those are taken care of, when you give, I think you should try to give to have maximum exposure. You should try to impact the most amount of people that you can. Like even when you have a relationship and you really want to take care of that, when you give, the same thing with giving is like you want to make the best investment you possibly can. It's probably because I'm an investment-minded person.
Yeah.
When I make an investment somewhere, and especially with your tithing and your giving and the things, you want to impact as many people as you can. So,
yeah. I mean, you said to me, I laugh because I think one of our first conversations, you go, hey, I'm kind of tired of spending money re-slurring church parking lots. Do you got something that's more meaningful? I remember you told me that. I'm kind of laughing. I go, I like this guy already. And I think we dove into a project that had more impact on people's lives. And not to say that slurry isn't really important in Wisconsin, but
right.
I love the fact you look for stuff that's going to touch people.
Yeah, how can we be fishers of men, right?
Yeah.
Like how can we cast such a wide net that you have just the biggest impact that you possibly can? I think we should look at that. I think we should look at more stuff in our life like that. Take more personal accountability for the things that are in our life. Take really good care of them and multiply it.
What do you hope leaders, if you could just say, and I want to extract faith for a moment, because I know obviously if we're people that love Christ and we're followers of Christ, that's our ultimate. But let's push that aside for a moment. Apart from faith, what would you hope if you could get every leader in Wisconsin saying, hold on to this? What would you say? Why would you want to teach them? What would they need to hear from Caleb as like, okay, I can do that?
What a great question. I'd probably go with humility. Constantly work on humility. If anybody says they don't have an ego, I think they're deceiving themselves, right? Ego is just like anything else in our life. It can completely run us if you let it, right? You constantly have to work at it. You constantly have to do different pieces to make yourself better. And humility, when you are truly humble, I believe that is when wisdom can come in. Like that is when you can start making really great choices because...
Yeah, but isn't humility, I'm just going to interrupt because this is so weird. Humility is like, yeah, I'm working on humility. I'm more humble now.
Well, Moses did say he was the most humble man on
I'm just
on
saying
the
like
planet.
it's so
Moses,
funny
who wrote that book.
So you're saying that you either have humility or you
Well,
don't?
I would say it would be a great thing to hope that leaders could have. But do you think that, how do you work on humility? Like that's an interesting dialogue. What does that look like?
Yeah, it's asking yourself really great questions. Humility. See, I disagree. I think you can teach yourself humility. I think you can work on humility a lot like you can work on what you focus on. Like you can work on being a positive person, right? We call positive people, oh, they're a positive person. It's like, no. They've worked a lifetime to become positive typically, right? A lot of us have negative thoughts, but they went on this journey to become positive. And now they're just positive all the time because it's their habit. And I think it's the same thing with humility is this every day you just look at yourself and go, okay, did I do that for myself? Did I do that for, well, you didn't want to go into faith with it, but what was the real reason why I did that?
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to be hard on yourself.
So to clarify, humility isn't thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less.
There you go.
Is that,
there you go.
Paint your picture of what you're aiming at?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, okay, so let me add, and maybe I'll say it differently. Humility is a fruit or a product of something else you're doing, which I would argue and say you can't work on humility. What you can work on is being honest and showing up with who you really are.
Sure. I see what you're saying.
In your mess.
Yeah.
The more you do that, you have a realistic view on who you really are.
You're saying humility is a byproduct almost.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got
yes.
you. I got you. That's
there. You go.
There we go.
There we go.
Being transparent. I see.
Pastor corrected billionaire here. Not billionaire. Not true. I'm sorry.
I'm not going to say that he's not normal. Yeah. I won't say that for the 7th time in our show.
No.
So I want to put up just some of information about you, Caleb Hayes Enterprises, and there's a bunch of kind of links there to YouTube stuff and some interviews. And I know, Caleb, gosh, what would you, again, you're not on here because you want anything from anybody, but gosh, what would you hope for if people can link in and connect with you on some level? Is it to coordinate with them, to coach them? I mean,
sure.
Talk about that a bit.
Anybody that wants to get into real estate, we have such a passion for real estate. You want to get into become a real estate investor, become an agent, start working on some houses, buy some commercial property, become an appraiser, anything real estate based. I mean, you should give us a shout for that. I mean,
That's cool.
I appreciate you putting that plug in. You didn't have to do that, but anything real estate based. We might sprinkle a little faith on top of it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for.
Well, and I don't think it's trying to do you a favor as much as I think both Ryan and I mean, back to your greenhouse.
That's exactly right.
Gosh, you're a great place for people to work, to people just to network with and to go, man, I want to learn more about your journey. And
it's kind of the aim. I mean, he's a brilliant guest to this because you've created healthy environments.
Yeah.
Because healthy leaders reproduce healthy followers. Yeah. Healthy employers help reproduce healthy employees, and you see the we in all of it, which you haven't said it that way, but in our culture, I use the word we.
Yep, there you go.
Weology is a big thing, but you see the value of team, you propagate that, you see the bigger picture, you see that it really does revolve around him.
Yep.
That's a greenhouse, you're cultivating it. Can you imagine if other thought leaders reproduced what you carry?
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, Caleb, thank you.
No, thank you guys. It's been an honor to talk with you.
We're going to edit most of you out.
I get it. I totally get it.
Ryan and
I'm going to send it to my mom, and she's going to be like, "You're not even on here."
Yeah.
No, I love our friendship and relationship. It's been an honor to have you on here, and Ryan.
I'm inspired.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Love your core values too.
Thank you.
Hey, Lead Wisco, we're going to be doing more of these. We're excited about that. Man, stay tuned.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for listening today. We hope that you got to learn more about the intersection of faith and leadership from Caleb. If you want to learn more about Caleb or Caleb Hayes Enterprises, you can check them out on their website, YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook page. If this episode was helpful to you, we'd be so grateful if you subscribed or followed us, left a review, or shared our podcast with someone that you think may benefit from it. If you're looking for more leadership content, check out our social media. We post snippets of these episodes, leadership development resources, and more. If there's someone that you think would be a great guest for us to talk to on the Lead Wisco podcast, message us on social media or send us an email at leadwisco@gbcc.me. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.